Hello, everybody. This is the SonicLAB, but we're doing it remotely because this is the way that things go. And we're here with Matt Hodson, who's looking at the new Jammy guitar, which sounds like you're just being very lucky, Matt. How are you?
I guess I am a little bit, but yeah, this is actually the Jammy G guitar. Actually, MIDI controller guitar. It actually also outputs audio as well. There is a 1/4-inch output jack on it. It also runs over Bluetooth. It also kicks out over a USB-C as well, which I've got in there. It's not a full-length guitar, but it is 15 frets, really low latency, real strings as well, which is quite important, especially for those guitarists out there. And I am a guitarist, but I will profess I'm not the best guitarist in the world. But this is good enough for me. It's really interesting to play. I don't know if you can make this out actually, Nick, but this is the thing comes actually in 3 pieces, and you put this together in some sort of military precision, and that it has you connect the neck on. You lock it in here at the back and put this wing on, and you're pretty much ready to go. But what is really important is that the strings do not actually go all the way the length of the instrument. They actually stop here,
Right,
and then carry on from there. And for some guitarists, you might find that quite, well, let's just say there's a learning curve in this instrument when you start playing with it, in that because the strings don't continue all the way through, that vibration of plucking doesn't go all the way through, where you'd naturally feel that up here with your fretting hands. So very much like a normal guitar. Probably the closest I've come to a real guitar in terms of it being a MIDI controller. I've tried quite a few out there. I think we've talked about this before quite a lot on the podcast, about all the different MIDI controllers out there that are sort of guitar shapes. And this is the closest yet. Actually comes with an app as well, which allows you to choose the output of the sound that comes out of this. So when you plug it into an amp, you've actually got some real sounds. It allows you to configure things like a different MIDI channel per string. You can play around with velocity. It's got a little button here as well, which allows you to assign this actually to a MIDI controller of your choice. So I've actually got this assigned to transposition, but you can assign it to, say, volume. It clicks as well, so you could use it to turn on and off a particular sound you've got going on, like distortion or reverb or something like that.
there is I think there is. If I go to, I think I've got a shot here. There's those are the 3 parts it comes with, but it's also there is another section to it which you can buy, which is like called the MIDI frame, which gives you pads and additional controllers and whatnot. So if you really want to go full MIDI, then you can. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I suppose the thing is, it's class compliant. Does it take any drivers, or is it pretty much you just plug straight in?
This was plug and play. I'm using it on a Mac, and I'm on Catalina. Plugged it in, worked straight away. Didn't need to do anything like that. I was really impressed with the app as well, in terms of that connecting over Bluetooth. I've used these kind of things with apps before, and trying to get them to talk to each other doesn't always work. No problems with this one as well. It actually does a little calibration as well when you turn it on. You don't touch the strings. It does a little calibration just to make sure that it's kicking out, note perfect MIDI data, if you like, as well.
Well, I suppose the thing is what's it like into play? Because I mean, we've seen that. I mean, this has been all over the place. I mean, it's doing quite well, and they're obviously quite. Their marketing department is doing a good job. I mean, they suggested that we had a look at it, and I remember you saying, because you're not so much a keyboard player, but I remember you saying that your first instrument was guitar, so this sort of works well. But before I do that, let me just plug. I've got the app here. Obviously, I haven't got a Jammy here. I can't see all the stuff it does, but you got like a metronome, and then you can download various backing tracks. If I play this one, and I presume if you're connected to the app, this will kind of maybe show the notes you're supposed to be playing. I think it's like a sort of tab-based thing. I won't play all of that because it's But ultimately,
The good thing about that app, though, Nick, it does allow you to change things like velocity, and I think I mentioned this before. Every single string can actually go out on a different MIDI channel as well. So if you want to think about this of not just as a guitar, I wouldn't buy this for it just being a guitar. Think about how you can use this as a MIDI controller. You could, for example, send string 1 out to a kick drum on MIDI channel 1, and the second string out to a snare drum on MIDI channel 2. You can play drums with it, or you can use it in a way that isn't necessarily a guitar, is what I'm saying. And that's what the app allows you to do. Break into that MIDI channel control, the MIDI CC, and you can actually also change some of the way that this responds as well, which again is another sort of learning curve about the way it responds. You've got to get used to this. In fact, inside the computer, I did play around with some of the velocity settings inside of, I'm using Bitwig here actually, which allows you to change the velocity as to how it responds, just to get it right for you, because this isn't like picking up your favorite guitar you've got,
right.
But it's very, very close.
So I guess the thing is well, you've got it plugged in. I mean, hopefully we're going to be hear some sound. So maybe if you just can play us a few things and just give us an idea of what it feels like to play. I mean, latency and all of that kind of responsiveness.
Sure. Yeah, so I've got a number of sounds here, starting with just your nylon string. I'm using a plectrum, but it actually responds well to your fingers. Very, very quick. You hear that little pitch bend there?
Yeah.
So that was due to pressure of my fingers not being down all the way. And if you do move your fingers, you can get that pitch bend. And you can actually change that in the app. You can actually turn it off as well if you want to.
What's it like for slides?
Yeah, so slides, you're going to get that kind of thing going. It sort of re-triggers every time it goes over a fret. And I think that's the way, I think it's using optical sensors on some of the frets or this area down here, which means that it's going to re-trigger.
I'm surprised there's not a setting for that. You'd think that there would be some kind of setting for re-trigger mode and legato mode. Maybe when it's running in mono, that would make sense. Yeah.
The other thing is you've got to think about is palm muting. On your guitar, you would normally palm mute and you get that sort of dugga, dugga, dugga going on. Yeah. Now, again, in the app, you can actually say that when you do a palm mute, whether it's with this hand or with your fretting hand, it actually allows you to send out a MIDI CC. So when you're doing the sort of chugging, it doesn't mute the guitar, but you could use that to turn on and off an effect, which is pretty cool.
Or I suppose affect the delay and the sustain portion, so you would actually change the sound. Okay, let's have another couple of sounds there, Max. I think you've got some other things set up.
I mean, if we was to just whack on a bit of reverb as well, so a bit of Valhalla shimmer on, it's beautiful for this kind of thing.
Sort of almost sounds like old school guitarist with a volume pedal kind of territory.
It responds beautiful this way, and I'm finger picking now. The thing is, I'm not a keyboard player. I've said this before on the Sonic Talk podcast a number of times, and for me to figure out what these chord shapes are that I'm playing on a keyboard, it would just take ages. But I'm there straight away. Let's go for something more like a piano.
Is there a sustain control? Or would you have to have something separate for that? We'd have to have something separate to send out sustain, so that all those notes could ring out. I'm just curious, because that would probably make quite a difference to the way that the voicing happened on something like that.
Yeah. You can't actually plug in a sustain pedal into this, so you'd have to have one separate, running into the computer and assign that in such a way that it does sustain for you. But it is listening to the sustain of the notes for what it's triggering inside the computer. So if you play it hard enough, it's using the vibrations from the strings to sustain a note in the way that a normal guitar would, really.
Right.
But you can hear here, I'm getting quite a lot of re-triggering when I'm moving.
I'm really sure, because that's one of the reasons that you have the note per MIDI channel, which is kind of getting into MPE territory, because then the pitch bend would apply per note rather than across the whole thing. So I'm sure there's probably a way to set it up to be able to do that.
Yeah, quite possibly. Maybe delve into the app a little bit more and you might find those kind of things.
Yeah, I can't see any of those settings, unfortunately, because it only gives me, if I go back, I only get home, and it's like, make sure your jammy is turned on and play. So I don't get access to all of that stuff, sadly. It just isn't available to me, which is just the way it goes. So
fair enough.
So I'm curious, like, what about things like vibrato and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's actually got an accelerometer into it as well. You probably can't get to these settings yourself, but if you was to play something, if you had the accelerometer on, I don't think I have, but if you shake it, you can do pitch bends and all that kind of stuff with it.
So that'll send out yet another MIDI control that you could presumably assign.
Absolutely, yeah, you can. Something I haven't done, but yeah, I'd say totally you could just assign it to anything inside the box. Again, turning on reverb, turning on distortions, just for that moment while you're wiggling the guitar around, that sort of stuff.
So what's it like for fast playing? I mean, because I guess strumming would make sense, because that's something that's not easy to do on a keyboard. But what's it like for kind of, if you were to play something quite swift? How's the re-triggering and that side of stuff?
Yeah, well, if I go back to something like the piano again, and it's good. I should say you're picking up some of the raw string into the microphone. And then if we jump over to something maybe a bit more sort of distortion, like, it just works beautiful on these kind of things, on the pads.
Nice. So
yeah.
I did ask about about vibrato, and I completely forgot to. So if you go back to the piano, can we actually? Can you just, what happens when you do that kind of fast vibrato stuff? Does it handle that all right?
Yeah, this particular instrument, if I wiggle my finger, there's nothing going on, and I think so that's because of the contact instrument I'm using on this nylon guitar. Oh, let's turn off the delay and the reverb.
And what about if you do that fast? What if you're doing like a vibrato? Yeah, okay, that's pretty responsive.
Yeah. And you've got that per string, obviously, as well. It does sound a little bit like someone playing with the pitch wheel on a MIDI keyboard, but I guess the more you've got to have the right sound, the right instrument, and the way it reacts, and that kind of thing. And there is a learning curve, like I said, to playing it, and over time, I'm sure you can learn to get that more natural.
And I guess matching up the sounds that fit the style that you play with on it. I mean, so you've had it for a little while. Have you actually used it in terms of context of putting stuff into any of the sessions that you've been working on? Have you used it for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I was playing around with these sort of weird open chords, I guess you could call that, which I totally nicked off Blackbird by the Beatles. Yeah. And I was not going to play any famous songs in this in case YouTube jump on you in terms of monetization or piracy, that copyright rather.
All it needs is a filter suite these days, Matt.
Yeah, we've seen all those. But I can, those sort of things I've been chucking into compositions. Writing music for TV and adverts, for me, this has sped up my workflow, definitely, because in the past I'd be trying to transpose, well, what's that? How do I play that on the keyboard? Or get the Ableton push out or something like that and play with it. So it definitely has.
And I can hear the strings and the sound, and they are almost instantaneous. What are the figures? It's something like 10 or 12 milliseconds, which is the low side of MIDI as well, isn't it? Because MIDI is
10 to 12 milliseconds. It's super quick. I can't distinguish the difference from when I'm playing it. It's got these optical sensors for velocity on the bridge,
right?
And then it's also got fret sensors, and you can't see this on camera, but every single fret has got these kind of little notches below each string, and I think that's why it's so clever. That's why it's picking up so much information before it chucks it to the computer. It's quick. Bit of distortion.
Sounds like a guitar.
Sounds like a guitar.
And I suppose in some ways, I mean, setting up a guitar and plugging it in and all that, I mean, unless you're actually set up for that and you have an amp and you've got a signal path, I mean, I know it's, the purists amongst us would probably gasp in horror at the thought of, I just got a Contact guitar library and stuck it through some distortions and played it as I thought. I mean, have you been doing that? Go on, you could be honest.
No, I haven't quite. But I was envisaging, if I was demoing stuff and I was chucking files at people, I would definitely record the line out into the amp over there, the other side of the room. I'd be micing up the amp, and I can chuck not only the audio from the guitar for someone to play to, but I can also then record in real time the MIDI data that's going out and send that to other people to transpose, to play around with, and that kind of thing. So capturing the two different types of data at once, MIDI and audio, is perfectly doable with something like this.
But what's the internal voice like? I mean, it's probably not going to be as expressive or as largesse as some of the
they're pretty basic, and you get to choose what those voices are in the app. And at the minute, there's two voices. There's a clean kind of guitar, and then there's a distorted one. That's what you've got at the minute. But there's nothing to say, because it's audio. You can run the audio out from the guitar for your favourite.
Has it got a headphone jack as well, so that you can just sit there with a pair of headphones?
Sadly, not.
No, it looks.
No,
like,
I don't think it has. Yeah,
I'm just looking to see. Yeah, it doesn't have on there. I'm just seeing if you get that with the MIDI bridge. Oh no, what's it called? The MIDI frame. Sorry, I expect. So
that MIDI frame is. I'd definitely buy that if I was into doing more expressive stuff and you wanted a few more MIDI buttons to turn things on and off. But I've been coping really well with just the fact that it's got this single MIDI dial on the guitar, which, like I say, I've just assigned transposition. So as I turn that, you can see the transposition of this. And I find some things just work in different ranges better, don't they? So now I'm down here.
And I suppose in what you could actually make that into like a capo, so it could go up in tones and semitones, so you can play in your favourite position and still be in the right, the right key or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing you can't do is do something like a drop D tuning or weird tunings. You can change the tension of the strings if you want to do that. It's a bit involved. Take it apart a little bit, and I think you can get to some things in here or down here, which allows you to change the sort of strength of the strings and how they respond to you. But if you want to do a drop D tuning, you want to drop this E down to a D, it's not possible. Having said that,
I suppose if you were running in separate MIDI channel mode and routed each string through to an instance, you would just transpose the instance of that MIDI channel, right? Okay.
Yeah. So if you can get into that way of thinking, I've got different MIDI channels here, I can affect them all independently, then actually it opens up a whole world of other things you can do with the guitar. But there are times when I'm just sat here and I'm like, I just want to quickly just drop that down to D. But if I just set up something in Ableton or Bitwig or whatever as a preset, this is a drop D, bang, on that MIDI channel, it will then change it down a couple of semitones, and then I'm into drop D.
I suppose actually in Bitwig, I'm thinking about that you would do it as the MIDI processor, so that the notes that were recorded before it got to the record channel. So every time you play an E, it would be a D, rather than transpose the actual instrument itself that it was playing. If you see what I mean, it would make more sense. Yeah.
The other thing, as you know, in Bitwig, there's the grid, which I talk about a lot. It is brilliant, and all the MIDI information that you're throwing from this. The different MIDI channels, obviously the velocity and the pitch, and chucking that to different things inside of the grid, opening and closing filters depending on the velocity and where your fingers are positioned on the fretboard, as well as the pitch information. You can get some really interesting stuff going on. It can kick out quite a lot of data that you can use.
So you could actually, you can not clog it up, because the USB could be able to handle that easily.
Yeah. And, just to finish, I've also got something like a very simple arpeggiation inside the computer.
Excellent. Makes you sound like a good guitarist.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I was noticing the velocity there is quite, you were getting some quite good dynamics. How is the dynamics on it? Does it feel quite playable?
Yeah, I mean, if I go from quiet to low, there's quite a bit of an expression there, and I haven't got any. I'm not messing around with the velocity inside the computer. This is it coming from here. Again, I believe you can change all of this in the app about how it responds to that. So yeah, if you want to dig in, which you do as a guitarist, sometimes you do want to dig in, it will affect that. And it all depends what instrument you've got inside the box, of course, and how that responds and that sort of thing.
So what do you think? I mean, it's not the cheapest of things. I think it's currently on offer. What's it? It's the basic one is, let me see where it is. I'm just looking for the price. It's around about, there's the bundle.
I think something like $75 off, $50 off at the minute.
It looks like $50, so $449. I mean, that seems like that's the G. With the case and all the other stuff. What do you think? I mean, how do you feel about it for value for money? Because that seems like a lot, but it does look like it's a nicely built and sort of satisfying piece of hardware.
Yeah, you can see where they've spent the money, and when it arrived in a box and you open it up and you start putting it together, you can see that this is really well engineered, really well thought about. It is the price of buying a real guitar, that's for sure. 400 quid gets you a pretty nice guitar these days, but that's not why you're buying it. You're not buying it to be guitar. You're buying it to be a MIDI controller that us guitarists are familiar with. It's not black and white keys on a keyboard. It's the thing we know. It's the thing we've been playing since a kid.
So would it, assuming you hadn't been sent one for review and you'd watched a review, or now you've played it for a bit, is it something that you would like to that you would want to have in your sort of studio arsenal?
Yeah, definitely. Writing for TV and adverts, you've got to be really quick in getting those pictures in and that kind of thing. Would I have got one just straight off the shelf? I don't think so. I think I would have liked to have tried it out first for the amount of money that it is. But now it's here. Yeah, it's pretty indispensable, really. The thing is, I've got to get a guitar stand that can actually accommodate it, because it's such a strange shape as well. That's true. There's nowhere to put it. You can't.
And you can't hang it on the wall because it hasn't got a fret. That's a good point.
You just hang it upside down.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You just a hook on the wall. That's the way to do it. Hook on the wall, and then you can just kind of hang it there like a kind of ladder hook or something.
Yeah,
interesting.
But we'll let that slide for what they've done here. The fact that it don't work on a normal guitar stand, we'll let that slide.
And
Actually, slide is something I've not tried.
Oh,
Actually, using a real slide. I don't know how that would work.
That's interesting. So, you're connected over USB. Bluetooth MIDI is a little bit more latent, isn't it? Have you tried that? I mean, how's that work?
I have tried that. It wasn't massively an issue. Again, it depends how many Bluetooth devices you've got going on connected to your computer. It's going to bottleneck, isn't it? I did try it out of the box straight away with Bluetooth, and it was fine. Wasn't too bad at all. Notice a slight improvement when you're working over the USB. It's instant. It's great. Yeah.
Matt, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, it's always good to know what people, because a lot of these, when you see the marketing stuff for a lot of these things, you just think, oh, it's all hype, but actually this is the holy grail. And particularly with this, I guess you're getting over the fact that you don't get the single cycle with the low notes. You don't have the latency when you're playing further and further down, because ultimately there are different types of sensors involved. So, okay, brilliant. So I think it's available now, isn't it? I mean, I think you could just kind of, purchase it online, or from, I don't know whether it's direct from them or whether retailers do it or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you can just go straight to them. I think they're based in America. I think there are some distributors outside of America with it. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of adverts for it at the minute. Maybe that's because I've been Googling it a lot and that kind of thing, where I've been getting into it and the algorithms have got me. But I don't know if I'd buy the extra bit. I don't think I would necessarily need that. But I can see if you was taking out this on stage and you had program control changes you want to access, I'd maybe then think about getting that extra element that fits onto this.
On stage makes me nervous, because on stage you've got a USB connector or Bluetooth. Bluetooth on stage, because I mean the thing I've been working, when you've got small devices and Bluetooth MIDI, the range is not, if it's a big stage, you might have trouble with it, I think.
There's no way I'd rely on Bluetooth playing live. No way. It's got to be cable for me all the time.
Matt, thank you very much. That's excellent.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's been really cool playing with this. I must admit, first getting it out of the box, first few strums, I thought, oh, this doesn't really feel like a real guitar, because of that change here where the strings don't run all the way through. But seriously, as I've had this for a month, maybe 2 months, and it's absolutely fine now. I'm working quite quickly with it.